There is no one size fits all or a simple fix when it comes to your well-being. Hi, my name is Josephine, founder of Positivity Center and Wellbeing Consultant, and a person figuring out how to be my best. So join me in conversation with friends, sharing what works for them, and then listen to what works for others so you can create something that will work for you.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, hey, and welcome to the show today. I am your host, Josephine Tite, and I am joined here by my good friend, Robert Schmidt. And hello and welcome, Robert.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. If you were to introduce yourself to our listeners, what would you say about yourself?
Oh, is this a family audience? What?
It will be for everyone. Yes, kids are viewers.
Excellent. I would probably, that's a big question that is challenged by a simple answer. I'm a bit of a different duck. If you want to look at what I've accomplished in my life, I've gone to university. I've got a bachelor's degree in molecular biology and genetics. I have an executive MBA. I've ran companies and led divisions. I'm a dad of a couple of fabulous now adult daughters. I'm an entrepreneur. But if you ask me who I am as opposed to what I do, I'm probably a bit of a self-proclaimed freak. I do things differently. I challenge status quo, not just to be a jerk, and I try to get to the essence of what something really is.
So tell me a little bit more about that. Being a freak sounds a little bit unique.
Yeah, so a freak is a self-addressed label I put on myself many years ago, because I saw that, while I get along with those around me and I can be part of the group, I was always that person that challenged the literal meanings of what people would say. Language is powerful, statements are powerful. People would ask me a question when I was in business, and I often found that they never wanted the answer to the question. They actually wanted a different answer. They just didn't know how to ask the question. So for instance, real quick, people would ask, how many people are in your company? They never wanted to know the number of full-time equivalents and full-time and part-time. That's not what they wanted. What they wanted to know was my firm large enough to look after them, but small enough to care? And when I rephrased the question to them, almost every person who ever asked it would stop and go, yeah, that's what I wanted to know. But they didn't know how, because we get into these robotic routines. So as a freak, I've always been that guy that challenges that status quo. I tap into my science background. If you're going to test for something, let's actually test it, as opposed to, oh, I like how that looks. Okay, just because you like it doesn't mean it was effective. So that's where that freak label comes in. And even as I teach at a couple of universities, I consult with a bunch of different clients. I've been told over and over again that, Rob, you're just a different kind of guy, but in a good way. So that's where the label came in on the freak.
In a good way. And someone who knows how to help people ask some different questions. So
yeah, and that's that, communications piece, which it's hard, even though you've been talking since you were, 18 months old, 2 years. Yeah, there's a difference between spouting off words and really being.
Yes. Oh, I get you. Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation. As you may or may not know, and our listeners may or may not know, my husband gifted me, some hydrangea flowers about a month and a half-ish ago. And because the petals started to wilt, after a few days in my kitchen table, I decided I was going to stop wrestling with some negative thinking about those hydrangeas and cut their stems and put them in fresh water. So I took that direct and opposite, action. And then, of course, those hydrangeas lasted for over 3 weeks. So it reminded me that obviously hydrating and nourishing our lives was important and essential to bring out more of the best of us more often. And that, hydrangeas need water. I guess we do too. We do need to drink water in order to survive. But we also need more than just water to live well. So Rob, I was kind of wondering if you might give your thoughts on what it means to you to live best or to live well.
Yeah, that also is one of those questions that becomes very personal. And for me, living well, there's some common elements. that will apply 365 days a year to me. Living well also will vary a little bit depending on the season, based on how I'm feeling, based on what I'm looking for. There's some pieces to living well for me that are important. One is freedom to choose. And we can have a whole conversation whether our freedoms are actually freedoms, whether we actually choose anything or whether we're influenced into them.
Perception.
We'll save that for another day. But the ability to act upon what I want to do and live with the consequences. It's not a case of I get to do only the great things, and any negative consequences that come with it, oh, I shouldn't have to take those. No. I'll take the good, the bad. Surrounding yourself with the right people, nourishing yourself. Those are all pieces that help us with our life. And I just got back from a month in Mexico, as you know, and I took a month off to try an experiment to see what it would be like to run my firm, whether I'm here in my main city of Calgary or whether I can do this from around the world. Now, I've got great people. My senior designer can run the shop and I don't have to worry about it. He's phenomenal. But I was able to run my company, get new business, talk to new clients, keep existing clients happy while I was in Mexico with my wife and my 19-year-old daughter, living an amazing life. I needed to do that. That was part of what I needed to stay hydrated, surrounding myself with the right people, doing things that had a challenge to it. I did miss one piece. I'm as you know, a fairly active skydiver. And I didn't get any skydiving in because the skydive center in the city we were in Playa del Carmen doesn't let experienced skydivers skydive.
Oh.
They only let tandems go up. So I sat every morning having a coffee on the deck, doing some work, and I hear the plane go overhead.
That's torture.
I could have used it as torture. And it's how you frame it.
How did you frame it?
I didn't look at it as torture. I looked at it as a reminder of soon. I'm going to enjoy this for now, but soon I'll get to enjoy that.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And it became a different way to look at it so that I didn't have to sit there and go, why am I not doing that? I wished I could do that. No, you know what? Let's enjoy what I'm doing right now because I can't do both.
Right.
So I'll do this and I'll do that soon.
Yeah. I'm here. So let's enjoy here now.
Yeah.
That's exactly. I hear you. I'm living that right now with some family medical stuff, and I can't go into the worst possible future because it's not here today. So I'm just going to enjoy today.
100%.
Yeah. So cool. The three things you talked about too, just having the choice, that the skill, if you will, and surrounding yourself with good people is, DC and Ryan's self-determination theory, which is like the basic psychological motivation theory around. So did you know that?
So I do have a minor in clinical psychology, but it's been a few years.
Yeah, so cool. Well, that's bang on. So, I mean, it is kind of a psychological based conversation. And, I think from where I look at this well-being lens, science tells us what works for some people some of the time. And then because you're a unique human being, you get to figure out what works for you most of the time. So yeah, what does work for you most of the time? I know you did bring up a few things, but how did you figure that out?
Trial and error. I won't say that happiness is the purpose of my life. I would say maybe closer to joy than happiness. Happiness.
What's the difference between joy and happiness for you?
Again, for me, happiness is that short-term emotional feeling versus joy, which is closer to satisfaction, fulfilled. It's all good. Even, looking at a catalyst event, you talked about your flowers that, they help you to be able to reflect. They help you to be able to go, whoa, hey, I see that happening in life. For me, I don't find a lot of single catalyst events. For me, I'm observant. I'm a scientist by training. I'm observant of everything around me, or at least as much as I can possibly see. And I reflect on those continuously. So I may be walking through muck and it might not feel very good. Perfect example, right now here in Calgary, while I'm on this call with you, it's snowing. We came back from Mexico, it's been minus 30 Celsius. Human beings shouldn't live where it hurts to breathe. You just shouldn't. This tan that I've gotten is going to be fading quickly. Now, I can come back and be miserable about it and just accept that as my fate in life and how terrible the world is. And I can't believe my parents stayed in this country and why was I born here? Or I can turn it around and go, you know what? I've been walking in the snow, no pun intended, for long enough that I either better learn to love it or I need to make a change. And that's where I'm going. So I've used a longer term, you kind of sit in the muck until I'm finally done sitting in the muck to go, now it's time to move on. It's not a single catalyst. It's more a reflection to go, love it or change it. And when I change it, there's going to be consequences to it. If I go to Mexico, when I was just down there, yo hablo español un poquito, which is a far difference from más. I don't speak a lot of Spanish yet. I think I'm on a 57-day streak with Duolingo. I'm learning, and as a middle-aged man, I'm not beyond learning. So for me, I will become fluent in Spanish. I will have people around me when I'm in Mexico who will tolerate the gringo who's stringing together a few sentences.
Yeah.
But we'll get there, and I'll accept it, and I'll accept the frustrations at some times going, I can't figure out how to get this done. I don't know how to communicate with them. Think of a different way, Rob. But it's that reflection that I use to help me figure out, where do I get the joy in my life, and then seek that joy.
Someone reminded me the other day that, every time there's a fork in the road, there's benefits and drawbacks for each avenue you're going to take, but one fulfills more purpose. And I think that's kind of maybe what you're saying is that purpose aspect is driving you. It's the catalyst that keeps moving you forward.
Yes. And the more I walk around full of joy, not happiness, full of joy, happiness is often a byproduct of it, but when I'm full of that joy, I can't help but give that out to people I'm near as well. So even while I was down in Mexico, I'm having continuous calls with clients and they're like, you're looking pretty happy. And I'm like, oh, is it the Thai? Maybe it's the cold beverage I'm having. And it's like, no, it is at a deeper level than that. There's something from inside that's coming out.
Yeah. That's the light that shines from within the eyes. Well, we're reading a book and I started reading that same book. I'm not sure if you've finished reading your book, but I'm about just over halfway through. So we're both reading The Inside Track by Peter Sage.
Yes.
Okay. So interesting that you bring up this joy and happiness thing. So he actually says in his book that happiness is one of the many human emotions that we are not meant to feel all the time.
Right.
However, he says we get to ask ourselves two questions. Where do we live? And where do we visit? So how do you manage that concept of living well within sort of those two questions, understanding that array of emotion and that it's all going to present itself to us at some point in time? Where do you live versus where do you visit?
Yeah, where do I live is a choice. It's where I establish my roots, if you will. It's where I nurture, it's where I grow, it's where I retreat sometimes to charge. And that's my personal call. I get to make that choice with those around me and my family and by myself. Where I visit sometimes depends on what I'm trying to accomplish on my visit. For instance, if I want to go spend a day at the beach, I'll visit the beach, but I don't want to live on the beach. On the beach is too loud. There's too many people. It's party scene. I don't like that. But I like to visit the beach for having a short stint of, yeah, let's party. Let's have a great time. A couple of cervezas, a sunburn. Yeah, I love it. The difference is, again, the intention behind why I'm doing what I'm doing, where I'm living versus where I'm visiting. Sometimes I need to visit a client in an environment that's not the one I would ever choose to live in, but I need to go there for them. It's kind of like, I'm watching a TV show, and on the TV show, someone's in prison. And to visit them, you have to go through the game to get to see them in prison. The tap downs, the check-ins, hop on the bus, the lineups, the waiting. Would you choose to live there? Probably not. But would you choose to visit them? Well, if your purpose is, that's what I have to go through to get to them, then I'm going to choose to do that. Short-term, temporary, not long-term sustainable. So that's kind of, my take on the difference between the visit versus the live.
And it's so interesting. I thought for sure you're going to bring up emotions, because when I read that, I was like, holy dang it. I want to live in the joy place. And then I might visit sadness, or I might visit in the loneliness, and it's just a visit. It's temporary, and it's not pervasive, and it's not permanent. So I can be there. I can be okay with that, because I know where I live in joy.
Right.
So,
and I believe that your environment influences your emotion, and your emotion influences your environment.
Absolutely.
When my daughters were very young, they'd have a bad day or a bad experience. Something would happen, and they're grumpy and they're crabby. We would actually go to the mirror. So I would have my kids come to the mirror, and I'd emulate this for them. I'd say, you need to go to the mirror. It's a mirror time. You have to stare in the mirror and force yourself to smile. But I don't feel like smiling. And you go, I know that, I get it, but watch what happens. And you go to the mirror, you look at the mirror, and you're all pissed off, and life's terrible. And you're like, I don't want to smile. You go, well, just smile, force it. And it's like, the next thing you know, after a few moments of this stupid smile, you're actually smiling.
Yeah.
And then you're starting to feel good, and you're like, but I don't want to feel good. I want to feel miserable. So stop smiling. And your environment can create your emotion, and your emotion can create your environment. So when I talk about a physical location of where to go, they're tightly connected to where you make reference to the emotional side.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, here's to creating more joy and deciding where it is that you want to live. Thanks for joining us today. And until next time, keep doing more of what you love.
Thanks for listening to Wellbeing That Works. Before you go, take 1 minute to write down your takeaway from today's guest. And be sure to download our Wellbeing Evaluation Sheet to help you along your wellbeing journey. And if you've got something to share to inspire others, be sure to be a guest on our show. Until next time, with love and kindness.
I self-describe myself a bit as a freak. Now, a self-described freak, you can have that label as a negative connotation or a positive connotation. And I see it in the positive connotation. Someone who swims against the current a little bit, someone who's willing to challenge status quo. I question things as opposed to, what's the real why behind something. And, I'm trying to do this. Oh, well, if you're trying to do this, the way you're going about it isn't going to get you to achieve this. What do you mean? It's going to get you to achieve this, not what you're trying to achieve. So why don't we adjust the experiment, if you will, to do this? And again, I've been that self-proclaimed freak for a long time. Well, I've met hundreds of freaks over the last 20 years of my life, and I've given people those labels. And I've asked them, I said, you know what, if you don't mind, I'm going to put you in the freak club. And they're like, what? And you explain it, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to wear that proudly.
I'm like, well, I'd be honored to be in the freak club, but I haven't been invited yet.
See, and you're one of those members that, you're a freak. You're different. You're someone who practices what you preach, and you call BS when you need to call it, and you don't just go with it because that's just what you're supposed to do. And because of that, those are traits that put you in the freak club. And if you look at some of the best relationships a person has in their life, it's usually by meeting someone who's also part of the freak club. So a freak has introduced you to another freak who hangs out with another freak, and the next thing you're going is like, this is awesome, I love it.
Yeah.
And it is, as you said, it's who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, truly. Yeah. And including yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, hold on to the freak thought, because I think I'll formally start the show.